We're outnumbered, so we got to go get more people right now.
We'll call up the Woodlocks, Craig.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. We have two very dedicated volunteer developers based in Ireland. So
okay,
not
right.
sure. Yeah.
I would say this is 50% of our team, so don't be too intimidated.
And Dave Neary on our board is Irish too, so we'll add him to our team.
All right. So spiritually, we're even out now. So hello everyone. I'm Craig Chellis. I'm the executive director, and with me on the call is Ed Cable, who's our director of community programs, and Dana Harp, who's director of our strategic initiatives for credit unions, SACCOs, and savings groups around the world. So I thought what I would do, I mean, we could, do you all want each of us to give a little bit of an introduction of ourselves, or would you like me to just jump into this very quick overview of the Mifos initiative? How would you like to start?
Yeah, I think if you just jump straight in and Mifos, and yeah, we can take it from there.
All right, so I'll give you a quick presentation. What I want to do, without taking too much time, is I want to put Mifos into context. I think that really helps people understand, you know, how we got where we are by understanding where we came from. There's actually 3 generations of Mifos and its technology. And I'll cover that very quickly. And then I want to give you a little bit more of a look at the generation 3 that we're launching in 2016, which is Mifos IO, which is going to be banking as a service. Touch briefly on the pilot projects that we're lining up for 2016, and then share with you a big announcement and the impact of what it means of Mifos as an Apache project. So I'll do all that maybe in as fast as 12 to 15 minutes, just so we can get on to the conversation. What I like to say to people, just for the shock value, is Mifos is not a nonprofit. Now, we actually are. We're a 501c3. And we're supported by contributions from Silicon Valley and other Silicon Valley executives and corporations. But what we really are is an award-winning software project. And the way we operate is really as a software company. And we build world-class, award-winning software. It's nonprofit. We're a nonprofit. It's free and open source, and as an organization, we're dedicated to ending poverty. We like to say 1 line of code at a time, and it's a good one. And
it's original.
It is. End poverty, 1 line of code at a time. And our leadership, for example, is Paul Moritz. He's our chairman. He was the executive vice president of Microsoft. He was number 3 in the company behind Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. He then went on and was the CEO of VMware, which is the leading company in cloud computing. He was then the CEO of Pivotal, which is the leading company in platforms, software as a platform, as a service, and big data analytics. We are very much a software company, but we're dedicated to the notion of free and open source software to end poverty through providing financial inclusion services. And we have built 3 generations of technology using the input from innovators and practitioners from all around the world. And every year we have our Innovation Summit. I'll ask you, where in the world is Waldo? Because I'm in there, and Dana's in there, and Ed's in there. And every year we have a summit. And all these people who are both software developers and IT managers, CEOs of SACCOs and credit unions and MFIs, and we all come together and we ask ourselves, what do we need now? How can we drive innovation for you? And these people, we have over 120 financial institutions. We have over 40 local deployment partners. We're in 37 countries. We're approaching 5 million clients being served. And after several years of innovation, so now let me put the generations in context now. This project began as a project inside the Grameen Foundation, which is a nonprofit focused on microfinance. And version 1 of our technology, which is called Mifos II, because it actually reached version 2, Mifos II, was an MIS, and there's a real old term, an MIS, a Management Information System, focused exclusively on Grameen joint liability lending, the methodology invented by Muhammad Yunus, for which he won the Nobel Peace Prize, and he was the honorary chairman of the Grameen Foundation. And it was focused on India, and all the first deployments were in India, and they were all microfinance institutions using Grameen joint liability lending. When that proof point was established, the Grameen Foundation spun the project out. Ed and I took it over with Paul Moritz as our chairman, and we turned it into a software project, not just a proof of concept project inside an NGO. And we left behind the entire code base and started Generation 2. Generation 2 is now called Mifos X, and it's built to be cloud-based. It's built to be very easy to modify and extend and expand because it's very clean open source code. You can put your own user interface and your own business rules on top of it. We expanded beyond just joint Grameen liability lending. We added individual lending and lines of credit and agricultural loans. We added savings functionality. Dana joined the team after a career in the credit union industry, rising up to CEO of a credit union. We've added savings functionality, shares, everything that a credit union would need. We added accounting, reporting, business rules. What we have with Mifos X is a complete core banking system. Now, for a small or medium institution, not for an incumbent bank, but it's a complete core banking system. And we're now reaching deployment in scale. We have a partner in India that won a contract with a state government. They're deploying 150 rural banks to deliver agricultural loans, and their platform is Mifos X. We have a partner that started in Kenya. They've expanded all the way south to Zimbabwe and now back up north to Nigeria. They've got 50 deployments. They're targeting 300 more in Africa this year, 2016. So Mifos X has matured. We have sophisticated partners around the world, and we're achieving deployment at scale. So we took a time out, especially at our last Innovation Summit, and we said, okay, what is needed now? And what our partners told us is Mifos X is great, but we need something that's even faster, more mobile, lighter to use, easier for us to pivot and stay focused on our customers. And so we're launching Generation 3. It's going to be called it's currently codenamed Mifos IO. And the philosophy behind Mifos IO, I'm going to go into it a little deeper, is to build apps, not infrastructure. We believe we're looking at the beginning of a new era. We call it Financial Inclusion 2.0, where when every mobile phone is a bank and every person has a mobile phone, everyone is accessible at dramatically lower cost. And what you really need is a complete banking platform that's provided as a service, as the infrastructure that includes transfer and payment processing, and that lets practitioners and innovators and institutions focus on what is the product that they need to deliver and how do they simply deliver it as a mobile app. And that's what we're building in our next generation. Rather than a core banking system that's deployed on a server, let's say, and it's configured as a complete product, we're offering a service that is configurable and expressed as mobile apps. And to make that sustainable, and our focus now on 2016 is making sure all of our partners and ourselves are sustainable, we're going to offer our Generation 3 as an on-demand utility, as a service that simply pay as you grow. If an institution has no upfront capital costs, and their operating costs are simply if they have one account, maybe it's 1 penny. If they have 10 accounts, it's 10 pennies. So it's simply pay as you grow. And we think that that model will really lead to a lot of sustainability and innovation. And what we like to say is Mifos is the innovation that powers the innovators. A really interesting proof point of that is the Zambezi Prize. It's offered by the MasterCard Foundation and the MIT University for innovation and financial inclusion. Now, we didn't apply for it because we're the software behind the scenes. But in 2015, First prize, second prize, and third prize, all of the winners of the Zambezi Prize power their innovation with Mifos. So in point of fact, we swept the Zambezi Prizes. Our partner in Africa that's moving on to 300 deployments is Mifos I. They have built the world's first 100% mobile, 100% cashless, everything is digital, 100% paperless. All clients and all employees use an app. Institution. They've gone from 1 deployment to 50 deployments. They're moving on to 300 deployments. They've received global recognition, over a dozen awards. The entire system is based on Mifos. We have an innovator in Uruguay who received an electronic money license under the Financial Inclusion Law of 2014. They're the only financial inclusion innovator targeting the under and unbanked that receives such a license. And their innovation in Uruguay is powered with Mifos. So we really do believe we are the innovation that powers the innovators. So that's a brief overview of the Mifos initiative. What I want to bring up very quickly is a little deeper look at Mifos Generation 3. And we're starting to use the term Financial Inclusion 2.0, which we think is coming about because of a whole new landscape. And I've lost my controls. Huh. I don't know where my advanced controls are gone. Is it because that's still open? There we go. So if we get the feedback we get from our partners around the world, from our institutions, the feedback we get at our Innovation Summit once a year that came in loud and clear last year is that yes, financial inclusion works, but there's still 2 billion people excluded from the financial system. In Africa, that number is probably going to grow. The declines we've had have been in some of the more advanced economies that are emerging in China and India. There's concern in Africa, the number of people who are in poverty and excluded from the financial system is actually going to grow in the next couple of decades as the population grows. So financial inclusion does work, but the costs are too high, the access is too hard, the innovation is too slow. And what's needed is a new approach. And we very much believe that new approach is about grasp the mobile digital revolution. Virtually everyone in Africa, let alone India and China and Latin America, has a mobile phone in their hand. Focus financial inclusion on building apps, not infrastructure. And let those apps be focused on the products and the services and the needs and requirements of the client, of the customer. And don't spend 80% of your time and 80% of your money building the back end. And responding to that all around the world is a whole new generation of innovators. The incumbent banks know that these software-enabled, fast, agile, mobile providers of financial services are coming. Now, JP Morgan Chase isn't trying to interfere with what's going on in financial inclusion. They're a little worried here in the United States. But it's this new era of access and low cost that's going to let us make a significant impact on the 2 billion who are still excluded from the financial system. And so our Generation 3 is a combination of a whole new technology architecture combined with a whole new service solution. And I won't spend more than one slide on the technology architecture, but we can go into the framework of this architecture if we need to have a CTO to CTO or tech to tech conversation. But basically what we've done is taken Mifos X, taken the concept of a core banking system and all of the portfolio management and client management and the transaction processing and payments and transfers, and we've broken it down into individual services. So you no longer deploy an entire monolithic core banking system, but rather you pick and choose just the services you need, and you simply configure and express those services as mobile apps. It's a whole new approach to thinking about how do you run a bank and how do you deliver services. And this is something that our architectural team, funded by Silicon Valley, is building, as we speak. And I can go into the architecture of it, but what I'm actually going to do is talk about the solution. This is all very high level. But just to take you through, again, the motivation behind this, you've got the under and the unbanked, you've got those of us who are trying to provide services to them, and you've got barriers to reaching these 2 billion. It's the very high startup costs of building bank infrastructure. It's the fact that you then need to spend your time building the back end in the infrastructure. Then you're going to have very high fixed costs or operating costs, particularly if you've gone for a proprietary banking system. And then you've got the slow time to market to configure and develop your products. What Mifos does is eliminate the expensive upfront cost of capital investment in software because we're free and open source. We eliminate the need to build and spend time building your infrastructure because we're going to provide complete banking as a service. We're going to eliminate fixed costs because everything is a pay-as-you-grow on-demand service. And we're going to eliminate the slowness to get to market by simply having fast and agile app development. This is the motivation behind what we're doing. And what we're going to do is take our technical framework, wrap it in what we call the Mifos Financial Services Cloud, simply for each institution, simply configure the specific services they want for their needs, their regulatory environment, their region, and their customers, and express that core banking system and those client products as simply apps, and then have transaction interoperability through connectors to mobile money networks or ATM networks or external providers. But what's really appealing to the people we're talking to is have the in-network transfers and payments. So if you're an association of credit unions, if you're a network of microfinance institutions, if you're an apex organization supporting multiple institutions, if those institutions are on the shared service, then their clients can have transfers at no cost. So you're eliminating, the money transfer fee, the Western Union fee, the ATM fee. We're talking with an association of microfinance institutions, some 40 of them, 15 rupees to get into the transfer system, 15 rupees to get out, total of 30 rupees. A pay-as-you-grow service like this might be a penny, might be 1 rupee. So you're talking about 1/15th the cost of a money transfer. And while there's a lot of complexity in this back end, we would be running all that. All that you would ask the support partner, the technical partner, and the institution to focus on is what's their value add. What is the configuration of services they need to be successful, and how do you express those products and services in the form of apps? And so what we're launching, what we're actually building in 2016 is a very sophisticated back end that we call the Mifos Financial Services Cloud. Now remember, our chairman, Paul Maritz, number 3 man at Microsoft, CEO of VMware, the leading cloud computing software company, CEO of Pivotal, the leading platform as a service company. So he, is working intimately with us and our team to make sure this financial services cloud is world class. And then once you have the cloud, of course, in different countries under different regulatory environments and different circumstances, you can have any kind of deployment you want, be it private, be it on-premise, be it public. That's not going to be a barrier. And what we're doing in 2016 as we launch our Generation 3 is move forward with some proof of concept projects. And so we're reaching out to associations, which is why we made this introduction to you. I'm going on a trip to Latin America next week. I'm going to be seeing over 10 associations of credit unions, savings groups, and microfinance institutions. We're reaching out to associations, networks, apex organizations. We're looking for folks who are seeking that go-forward strategy that's mobile-based, that has complete infrastructure, that's a common shared platform, that's delivered as a service for low cost on demand. We're looking for the groups that have this future vision, and then what we are going to do is run 4 pilots in 2016. And we will provide the complete solution, starting with a pilot. We're going to set up and deploy the Financial Services Cloud at no cost to the association or partner, and we're going to run that pilot and show them that this is a platform they can move forward on rather than looking back. And we're going to have a pilot in Latin America, Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. And that's why we're beating the drums here early in the year. So I told you I'd only take about 15 minutes, and there's a huge, what I actually want to do is talk a little bit about the Apache Foundation. I don't know how many of you are really technical or know about Apache, but Apache is the world's most prestigious open source software foundation. The internet runs on Apache software. Without Apache open source projects, there'd be no internet. Enterprises run on Apache software. Without Apache software, most enterprise systems would be unsustainable. And it's an association. Again, when I switch, I lose my controls. There we go. It was started in 1999. They have over 348 projects, of which 164 are top level. These top level projects are the most important and the most prestigious. There's a network of 5,000 software developers around the world who work with these projects. We've been invited to join the Apache Software Foundation. This is a huge development in our evolution. It recognizes that what we're doing is cutting edge, innovative, has achieved deployment at scale, is valuable to the global open source software community, has proof points in institutions. And this only happened in late December. It's been less than a month. And there's been no public announcement. There won't be until March. And when you join Apache, you have to have an Apache name, and it has to be some fancy high-tech sounding thing. So the project in Apache is called Apache Fineract. And this framework that we're working on, our Generation 3, is going to be the Apache Fineract project. And what this really means, if you're not technical, but if you're from the business perspective, it means that if you want to base your business, base your product on the Mifos code base, that you know it's going to be there. It's governed by Apache, it's ruled by Apache, Apache open source governance applies, and it's not going away. And you don't have to ask yourself, who's Paul Moritz, who's Craig Chellis, who's Ed Cable, who's Mifos. It's an Apache project. And there's a whole hierarchy of roles people can play in the Apache system. It's all very well managed, very well governed, and all very well understood. There's no opacity. It's all very transparent. And the timeline for this is in December we were accepted as an Apache, what's called incubation. That's the onboarding process. In early March, we're having our first Apache Developers Conference in Amsterdam, and that's when the first release of our framework will be made available. June 30th, July 1st, we're having General Release 1, and Q3, Q4 is when we're going to start implementing the 4 pilot projects. Okay. Whew. Ed, Dana, Mary, everyone take over. I need to have a glass of water. I've been talking nonstop.
Well done. That's very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can
Tell me a little bit more.
Go ahead.
You think you could I have a question maybe for you, maybe
Absolutely,
else.
absolutely.
Your linkage with Kifia, can you elaborate a little bit on that and what elements of their service you're behind, or what the connection is?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so with Kifia, I was going to say with Kifia in Ethiopia, so they're looking at building out a mobile platform to manage SOCOs, and so they're working with a partner in our community, leveraging the Mifos X platform to build a hybrid application, so to work on any mobile device, whether it be Android or iOS, so it's written on the Ionic framework, and that'll basically provide, this platform for the SOCOs to manage themselves. And so it's in the stages, I think we're moving into phase 2 of the development right now. So that's what Kifia is doing with Mifos X.
I was talking to somebody there a couple of months ago, I think his name was Miss Bennett, and we talked about the pilot that will be happening in, I think this is going to happen in Lalibela, I think is where they're going to pilot it. phase two. What does phase two mean? Does that mean actual rollout or pilot or? I'm obviously not rollout. But does it mean?
Yeah. So with
work, is it?
Also with Kifia, I know they have, because we were surprised at how many different, digital money and mobile efforts they had ongoing. So when I speak to phase two, I'm referencing this specific project. So phase one, in terms of the delivery of it, was more just the development of the initial mobile app. And then now the second phase of it's going to be adding in all the various SACO functionalities, so the shares and dividend support that is needed in the platform. So I'm not sure when their team is actually going to roll out the solution in production, but development has been split into two phases, and it's going to be powered by Mifos I, and then they're working with one of our partners from the community who we're closely supporting.
Okay, yeah. No, but obviously we're very interested in that because there's partially an MIS solution, and then also just the mobile services as well. So we might get a trip to Lalibela out of it. We're tossing a coin here.
Yeah, well,
just wondering how it's going. And
yeah, when I have my next calls with the Kifia team, because I'm on all the general project updates, I'll let them know that we've spoken to you, and we too are looking to work more closely with Kifia, not on just this project, but on all the other different digital financial service efforts they have ongoing in the country. So.
Yeah, very good. Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, maybe I should just mention kind of the countries where we are active: Ethiopia, Gambia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Albania, Belize, and Russia. Kind of a little bit Russia. Siberia, sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
We're active in Belize because, Dana, you live there. And Dana, why don't you tell a little bit about your role with us and why you had to seek refuge in Belize?
I sought refuge because I love this country. I was just going to say, what does the project that you're undertaking in Belize, because I've been in conversations with some of the finance people within the country, and I'm just very curious if we can do some collaboration because I do live here full time. I'm almost a formal resident.
Yeah, we've been working with the Belize Credit Union League people. We've been providing them with some support, which started in 2014 with a project it's the Belize Rural Finance Project that's funded by IFAD, if you know IFAD, the UN organization. So Isabel, who's here beside me, was our lead technical advisor on that work, but yeah, a kind of a range of supports to the organization there.
I see. Good. Now, are you involved in the IDB program that's going on with the league, or is that a subsequent?
We're not directly involved, but we're aware of it, and we've kind of facilitated some conversations with some of our experts on online payments here in Ireland, providing some technical input into that, and the IT person within the Belize Credit Union League who's involved in it.
Okay, and that's the newly. They've been in that position for maybe less than a year, the new IT person in the Credit Union League?
Yeah, they have a consultant, Niall Gillett, so I think he's taking the lead on it. They also have a guy, Abraham Obando, who's an IT manager. He's been there, I think, I'm not quite sure how long he's been there, a little bit longer, a few years, I think. So those are the two main guys involved with it.
Well, good. I would very much like to be involved with the Credit Union League here. As Craig said, my background, I'm a U.S.-based credit union person from my entire career, having worked in every very strongly operational background, very strongly member service background, and I consulted on a national level. So I would love to. I
We'd be
would
happy
love to get involved.
Yeah, we're happy to facilitate an introduction to the executive director there via email if you want it. That's no problem.
I would love that. Yes.
Yeah.
So a real point of focus for us in 2016. So Mifos X is very much focused on individual institutions because it is as I said, a core banking system for them. So we do have partners who do multiple deployments, but each deployment is with an individual institution. Our Generation 3 is very much a tremendous value proposition for groups and associations of institutions. And so a point of focus for us is to reach out to associations. That's why we've reached out to you, and to find an association that shares our vision, about how financial inclusion is going to be delivered, starting from now forward, not necessarily the way it's been done in the past, and to find partnerships where we can do pilot projects, proof of concepts, and case studies around this method. So that's what we want to open up your thinking about. And let you sort of come back to us and say, it's something you'd like to learn more about, do more due diligence on, and potentially partner with us on some opportunities if that's a direction you'd like to go.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What would be the minimum criteria or the standard characteristics of a SACCO, for example, that either a SACCO or else a small apex that would be interested in participating in the pilot?
Sure, and I'll let Dana talk to the operational needs, and Ed sort of talk to the organizational or technical needs. I think the most important, the absolute minimum is that they not be just simply one institution. The whole power of this approach is to get multiple institutions on a shared infrastructure, all using a common service. So sort of the absolute minimum is that it be an association of multiple institutions and not just one. Dana, you've done a lot of work with, what are the operational characteristics, the people characteristics that are needed for success. Why don't you talk a little bit to that about what an ideal scenario for us would be?
Well, that's really quite simple and quite straightforward in the credit union community, because what we want is the baseline principle of people helping people. Credit union community is perfect for this because we can get multiple credit unions talking to one another, all sharing, sort of the in-network transfers is a great example. We have a group of credit unions. I can make a deposit at your credit union. I can send funds to someone in another credit union. And this is the kind of functionality that the Generation 3 brings to the table at practically no cost, pennies, just very little. So in terms of the characteristics we seek for very good pilots, it's the credit union community philosophy. It was pretty succinct in a nutshell, but that's it.
And then they have to be open to change, I guess, to transformation. They have to be thinking about not how are they delivering services today, but how do they want them to be delivered, not in Q4 of 2016, but over the next 3 and 4 and 5 years, and how are they going to substantially increase their reach and their range, and how are they going to be relevant in a world of digital mobile money. We want them to be thinking about issues like that, and not wondering about which of the 2 proprietary core banking systems that cost a couple $100,000 should they be doing an RFP on. We don't want them wasting their money on that or thinking about those that old way of looking at it. We want them to be thinking about what's the future and how they're going to be relevant in that future. So that's
There's no minimum size as such?
Pardon?
There's no minimum size?
Well, you see, that's the interesting thing about a pilot. In some sense, smaller is better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, minimum size is different in India than from Africa than from Latin America. We're not too concerned about size. I mean, we wouldn't want two startup SACOs each which have 100 people. We'd like it to be a little bit more than that. We'd like it to be at least in the thousands. But it's more for the proof of concept pilot where everything that we build when we build this financial services cloud and we build this banking as a service, you have to build it all anyway. And then the way it's built is it scales, through virtual machines and extensibility of the platform. So we're not concerned about scaling it. We have the architectural resources, which means the brain power and the vision architecturally to know how to scale it. We're much more interested in building an instance and getting some folks using it, and size isn't that important. If anything, smaller is better. I mean, even if it were an association of 100 institutions, the first phase of the pilot doesn't involve 100. It doesn't involve 50. It doesn't involve 10. It involves 2, right? You find the 2 most progressive in the 100, and you get them using the service, and then maybe your pilot expands to 3 or 4, and then you do an evaluation. So size isn't as important as you might think. They're concerned about the future. They're looking for what's the new way they're going to reach and expand their scale, and they want to work with, a leading institution like you guys and us. Would that be fair, Dana?
I absolutely agree.
So, for example, you have our partner in Sierra Leone, small new partner, approximately 4,000 to 5,000 credit union members spread across 20 credit unions, with the largest being about 800 or 900, and the smallest being 100. Some in the capital Freetown and some in the region. Very poor internet infrastructure. There is supposed to be, they've been waiting for years and years for the fiber cable to be imported, to be laid into the city. Very low incidence of, most people will have a mobile phone, but probably less than 5% of them with a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, are they potential candidates?
They are. Some red flags go up. First of all, let me address the phone issue. It doesn't have to be a smartphone. I mean, in 5 years, it'll be a smartphone, but it works with a feature phone. It works with a text-based interface. So we do want them to have a feature phone, and that's all. That they don't need to have a smartphone. So in terms of the internet connectivity, we do have the online. You want the institutions themselves to be able to connect to the cloud-based service. The consumers don't, because they can be using the mobile connectivity and the feature phone. So you do want the institutions, but we do have the store and forward online offline capability built in. It's not completely ideal, but on the other hand, another characteristic we want are folks whose social mission will be advanced by receiving a free and open source product, who will benefit from our nonprofit mission of setting this up and essentially giving it to them. So they meet that characteristic. If the people have feature phones, that works. It's a bit of an issue that the institutions themselves are going to be coming on and off of the internet in terms of connectivity to the cloud, but we do have the store and forward capability, or what's called the offline capability. So that's not a complete exclusion. So that's in the ballpark. It may not be absolutely perfect, but it's not something that would be excluded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, well, it's Michael here, and I'm mainly based with West Africa, and the internet landscape there is difficult. In some countries it's quite good, and then it tends to deteriorate almost ironically, with economic development, because then the demand just explodes, and suddenly,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you go forward and then you go back. That's what we tend to find. You put in, as sometimes as the economy drives forward, the actual services can keep up. It's the challenge is to find something that works on the minimum requirements.
Okay.
So you'll be at a stage of looking at potential pilot countries, and then are you planning to visit a few before you make a selection, or what's your process for selecting these
Yes,
pilots?
we're going to pick the partners over the first 2 quarters of this year, so there's not a rush to judgment. And we will absolutely be visiting them so they can meet us and that we can actually see what the requirements and the needs are on the ground. And then we will be moving into pilot implementation in Q3, Q4. So it's a very measured process, and we certainly have the funding to do it right and to show up and to understand them and to understand the requirements and to develop a project plan.
Can I give you a second scenario?
Yes.
Oh, please.
A larger movement of about 10, 12 credit unions, and under an apex, with approximately between them almost 50,000 members who have a core banking system, have invested heavily in it, and been implementing it for 3 years, with a good degree of success, but a lot of expense along the way. So they're up and running on a system, and they are doing some shared services, inter-credit union interaction between credit unions, in order to roll out a branch structure. So naturally, they work very hard, in terms of how can you introduce a movement like that to your system, let them see how it works. Obviously, they need to understand, see a lot, test a lot before they would, make a jump. Something they're going to very heavily in.
Let me open up another diagram and show you how that scenario would work. And let me go there. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how I showed you the framework, just conceptually, which is a set of services that when it's configured, when you put in this institution-specific configuration, what you get is a set of services that can be delivered. There's an intermediate stage where what you have up here is the core banking system. Now I've put in Mifos X because Mifos X is our Generation 2 core banking system. So when we first start to roll this out in 2016, and if some of our case studies happen to be Mifos X users, or if Mifos X users want to adopt this, Mifos X hasn't yet, if you will, dissolved into the framework. It's there as an object, and the rest of the framework treats it as an abstraction to which it's connected. The same would be true, and I'm giving you a very technical answer, the same would be true of folks who have a big core banking system up here. So that big core banking system would be connected to the aspects of this service that are perhaps only for branches or mobile phones or other forms of extension. And that's how it would work in that scenario. Where that actually is having some traction for us is working with incumbent banks. There's a team of software developers out of Boston University who are working with one of the largest banks in the world. And the banks want to reach the underbanked. They don't really want to reach the unbanked yet. They want to reach the underbanked, though. But they can't do it with their core banking systems. Even thinking about changing their core banking systems costs $1 million, and actually changing it is tens of millions of dollars. So there's the beginnings of major banks taking Mifos X and really taking Mifos, the framework, which is what they want, and using it as the financial inclusion module that's integrated with, or at least communicating with, their core banking system. In their view, this box would be, dramatically bigger, and we would just be a tiny little thing. So that's how it would work in that scenario. If that institution wanted to experiment, wanted to do a pilot, wanted to see how our framework and our service could extend their reach with greater flexibility and lower cost, we would have a connection to their core banking system and use our system as an extension. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does indeed, to a point. Yeah, I think they would also potentially be looking at it and say, okay, is this down the line an alternative?
Well, and they would, but they would be. That would be in the back of their minds. But it's a very, very difficult business and political decision to say we've invested however much money in the core banking system, and now we're going to replace it. Although we've been introduced to the Malawi Association of Credit Unions through the Canadian Credit Union Association, and we're going off to visit them in March. And they made a decision to implement a very, very expensive proprietary core banking system as a shared platform for all their members, and it's proven to just be too expensive and too complex. Hasn't really rolled out. They've now reached the capitulation point where they want to look at an alternative, and we're off to see them. So that point is reached. You're right.
I'm gathering you might have some familiarity with the Ethiopian context as an alternative. There's no apex body there. It's quite fragmented. I suppose the highest level is just unions. There's primary SACCOs, which have between probably on average 100 to 500 members on average, and then they aggregate up to unions, which supply some financial services to them, and there might be 50 to 100 SACCOs in every union. And above that, you just have the government infrastructure. Although the government are keen to develop some appropriate institutional arrangement, yes, from the Irish experience and other experience of credit union movements, they'd be keen to get a single MIS system in place. Although I know this is stretching beyond just MIS. But so that's a very greenfield site in terms of there's nothing really in place at the moment, or very little. But I suppose there's a few NGOs that are working particularly with the unions in terms of capacity building, a couple of clusters of the unions.
That's actually a better briefing than I've had on the Ethiopia situation, although Ed may be more familiar. That's the kind of thing that we would like to pursue. It requires strong partners and good introductions. We wouldn't shy away from that. But on the other hand, working with the national government to be picked as the one solution is just fraught with many other issues, many of them political. So,
Yeah.
It's difficult. We have a
partner.
Pardon?
I said it's hard to find the perfect partner.
Oh God, yeah. Okay. Well,
So,
in terms of it, go ahead. Go ahead.
What, I was just going to say probably what you were going to say, just in terms of what you might need, what we could supply. What are you thinking?
Well, our object here was to give you the introduction to Mifos, which perhaps you've never had. Certainly, we want you to think about and reflect upon it. But in an ideal scenario going forward, we would want you to partner with us to help select a pilot case and work with us to see it successful. I mean, we'll be driving it from a technical deployment implementation level. We'd appreciate your assistance in making it successful at a credit union, association introduction level, and perhaps it can be a tremendous case study for our two organizations. And that's the perfect world. You probably have a lot more due diligence you'll want to do between now and then, and we can facilitate that. We're going to be in bed for the conference, and that's just about the time we're going to be wanting to make selections and final decisions. So we've got a lot of opportunity to work together and the opportunity to meet in person at the Belfast conference.
Right. And just can you remind me, in Africa, you're just looking for one pilot, is it?
Well, Paul says, Craig, curb your enthusiasm. I've been doing this for 35 years. Let's not overreach in 2016. So conceptually, we're looking for one pilot in Africa. If we had an absolutely perfect scenario, there's always room for more, but we don't want to bite off more than we can chew in 2016.
Sure. Yeah. You might just put down in an email, maybe kind of as Michael was getting at, your ideal scenario, and we can reflect on the countries where we're working and try to come up with something that's close to what you're looking for.
Yes, I will do that. Dana and Ed and I will put together a short couple of paragraph brief on the ideal scenario, and we'll get it right off to you.
Yeah, great. Great, yeah, that's perfect. Great.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time.
Exactly an hour.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Great. Yeah.
And
yeah, we will. Yeah, great. And then we'll go away, have a think about it, and get back to you in a week or two.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Just one last question, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Have you stopped encouraging institutions to deploy Mifos X now?
Oh, absolutely not. No, we are full speed ahead. For example, the partner in India who's doing 150 rural banks, that's Mifos X. The partner Musoni in Africa targeting 300 this year, that's Mifos X. And at the end of the day, Mifos X just gets absorbed into the Generation 3 framework. So if you're an institution, you might not even know that's happened. We might suddenly call you up one day and say, by the way, did you know you've got payments and transfers and a whole bunch of more functionality? So absolutely not. We are full speed ahead on Mifos X.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the development, the enhancements, all of that is active and will continue to be active.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Well, if the pilot, let's say, was someone who was going from a manual system or a very, an obsolete system, or a manual system or an obsolete system into 216, and it was accepted for the pilot, would you have a possible scenario where the person where that institution or network would deploy Mifos X and also engage in the pilot?
Yes. Their enterprise view, their worker view of the system would be the Mifos X view, because you still need a core banking system. So absolutely, yes. The fact that it's all cloud-based and has this other functionality, no, they're looking at Mifos X. If they have a PC or if they have a tablet that they're using to work, they're looking at Mifos X.
Yeah, we, across our, 7 partner countries, I think we have the entire range. We have countries where all or a good part of the credit unions are still on manual. Some of them are on that are not really fit for purpose. Right across to, as we said, one or two on, who invested heavily in modern systems. So you're saying the lower level ones would, probably begin by a deployment, or
And
be doing a deployment.
Something you might find helpful, especially for those credit unions that are still on their ledger books and manually writing and at best have an Excel spreadsheet. In our wiki pages, which is where we use our user manual, where all of that sort of stuff, there's a section in there specifically credit union slanted because, that's my background and that's my slant, where we have sample policy statements, sample procedures, sample forms, all those niggly little details that put a burden on people. They can be downloaded from our wiki pages and customized. And if you'd like to, on an aside meeting, go through some of that stuff for those organizations simply deploying Mifos X, please let me know. I'll walk right through it all.
We'll browse through it and come back to you. Sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so we'll be in contact.
Very good. Thanks so much. Good day.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you all. Thanks. Bye.